All right, everybody, I'm Logan Alec. I'm a CPA, and this is my update for Tuesday, February 9th. Today marks the beginning of Trump's impeachment trial in the Senate. Today, the Senate confirmed 56-44 that it does have jurisdiction under the Constitution to hold former President Trump's impeachment trial. As I've said before, it has been pretty clear over the past few weeks that the Dems will not get enough votes to convict Trump, so I'll keep you updated with what's going on there, but I expect it to play out pretty quickly and as expected. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said before the start of the trial, the Senate has a solemn responsibility to try and hold Donald Trump accountable. I particularly urge my Republican colleagues to pay very real attention to the evidence here because it's very, very serious. Schumer also mentioned that some of the evidence will be new, so we may see some new information, but unless it's earth-shattering, I doubt it will have any meaningful effect on the results of the trial. And while the Senate is busy with the impeachment trial, the House of Representatives is currently out of session for the next 2 weeks. They will be back on Monday, February 22nd, after the committees I mentioned yesterday have a chance to mark up their sections of the upcoming COVID relief bill. Chuck Schumer also wants senators to be working on this throughout the impeachment trial. You might remember from yesterday's update, the current round of extra unemployment expires in mid-March, which means they have just over a month to put this bill into effect and make sure people aren't left waiting for those benefits. Of course, keep in mind that many states, they take time to implement even the slightest changes to their UI systems, so time is really of the essence here for those folks. Democrats in the House of Representatives released a plan for $1,400 stimulus checks. There's been some controversy over how narrowly to target these payments. The newest proposal from Democratic Congressman Richard Neal would start phasing out stimulus checks for individuals at $75,000 in income, phasing them out at completely at $100,000 in income. That's for individual single tax filers. For married couples filing jointly, the phase out would begin at $150,000 and end at $200,000. And those upper thresholds would be hard cutoffs, even if you have several dependents, because the math is a little different in Neal's proposal, works a little differently than it does in previous stimulus proposals. Here is the math for a single individual making $90,000 a year with 2 dependents. And by the way, all dependents count under Neal's proposal. Okay, adult dependents included. So what you would do here is you basically take the excess of 90,000 over 75,000. So 90,000 minus 75,000 is 15,000. And you divide that by 25,000, which is a number in the bill text for singles. And that gives you a percentage of $60,000. And so you would take that percentage and you would reduce the total stimulus based on family size, right? Which in this case is just 4,200, 1,400 times 3 people in the family. You would reduce this $4,200 by 60%, right? Which is this percentage here, okay? So 60% of 4,200 is $2,520. So 4,200 minus $2,520 is $1,680. That is the stimulus payment that this single individual making $90,000 would get in Neal's plan. Here's how it would work with married. For married filing jointly, the phase out begins at $150,000 and it ends at $200,000. So let's say if a married filing joint couple making $160,000, you would take their income less the beginning of the phase out, which is $150,000. So that's $10,000 difference there. And then you would divide that by 50,000. This is just a number that is in Richard Neal's bill text, 50,000, right? So 10,000 divided by 50,000 for married is 20%, right? 10 divided by 5, or 10 divided by 50 is 20%. And then you'd multiply that 20% by the total maximum stimulus based on family size. In this case is 5,600, 1,400 times 4 people in the family. So 5,600 less 20%, 20% right here, less 20%, $4,480 stimulus payment there for married filing, jointly making $160,000 per year. So we've been hearing for a while now that many in Congress want to ensure that upper income taxpayers are not eligible for stimulus checks, and this seems to be what the Dems have come up with here. So they're apparently considering single taxpayers with income over $100,000 high income and married filing joint taxpayers with income over $200,000 as high income, and want to make those folks ineligible for $1,400 stimulus checks at all. Again, this isn't a done deal, but this seems to be where mainstream Dems have landed on this issue, at least at this point. Another issue that keeps coming up, of course, recently alongside stimulus is the $15 federal minimum wage. Obviously, there's a lot of support for that in the Democratic Party, especially among progressives, but moderate senators could make it difficult for them to pass that in the Senate for the time being. And even beyond that, there are concerns about whether a minimum wage increase can even be passed through budget reconciliation at all, which is meant to be limited, of course, to budgetary concerns. Joe Biden threw even more cold water on that recently when he said that he wasn't sure if the minimum wage increase would survive the parliamentary rules in the Senate. Chuck Schumer responded to that quickly today when he said that Senate Democrats are trying to work as well as we can with the parliamentarian to get the minimum wage. That's all I'm going to say. End quote. Schumer didn't take any further questions on that issue, so at this point it's hard to feel particularly confident that this is something that the Dems will be able to push through reconciliation, at least within the constraints of the current COVID relief plan. Joe Manchin, one of the more moderate, if not the most moderate and centrist Democratic senators, he's also from a very red state, West Virginia. He only supports bringing the federal minimum wage up to $11 an hour rather than $15 an hour. So even if they were able to square a minimum wage law with the rules of budget reconciliation, they still may not be able to get the 50 votes they would need to put that into effect. Ultimately, it's just looking like more and more of an uphill battle for Democrats who wanted to make this happen in the first 2 years of Biden's term, although it wouldn't surprise me if they can at least get it to $11 an hour. If not now, then perhaps sometime in the next 2 years. The White House also announced the start of the first phase of the federally qualified health center program for COVID-19 vaccination, which will supply community health centers around the country with vaccine doses as early as next week. This is part of their push to send out 11 million new doses per week, which is the minimum expectation for at least the next 3 weeks. You can see our vaccine progress on the CDC website. I'll put a link to that page in the description below in case anyone is interested. But as of today, more than 42 million total doses have been administered, with 32 million of those being first doses and nearly 10 million being second doses. Now, that's out of a total of almost 60 million doses that have been delivered. So part of that is data lag, but there have also been some complications in terms of making sure the doses get out to patients on time. But last story for today, this one is about COVID-19 itself. A team from the World Health Organization announced their findings today. They had been in Wuhan, China for 12 days investigating the origin of the virus, and they determined it was unlikely that the virus originated in a lab, which is a rumor that's been flying around since last year, although at the same time, they could not definitively trace it back to the seafood market there in Wuhan, another one of the possible places of origin. Their main hypothesis at this point is that the virus was transmitted from bats to some intermediary like minks, cats, or pangolins, and then one of those animals could have transmitted it to humans and started the pandemic that we are now dealing with. Of course, there's still a lot of investigation left here. We're still missing a lot of details regarding where and when the virus started, who knew what when, etc. But it's interesting that two of the most prominent theories are having trouble finding solid ground like this. All right, folks, that's my update today. As usual, I'll be back tomorrow with another one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.